Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Can all of you hear me? Is the voice okay? All right. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi allazina istafa amma ba'd. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Inshallah, today we will be discussing the concept of zakat in the Deen of Islam, and we will be dividing this lecture into two parts. The first part, we will discuss the spiritual dimensions of zakat, and then follow that up with the legal dimensions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a way to live our life, and that is called the Deen of Islam. And Islam is generally based on 5 foundations, 5 pillars, 5 rukun. The first is shahadatain, which we normally call the kalima, where we testify to Tawheed. We testify to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we testify to the risalah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The second pillar is salah. Third is zakat. Fourth is saum, fasting. And the fifth and final is hajj. And this is also the correct ordering of these 5 pillars. This ordering, first shahadatain, kalima, then salah, then zakat, then fasting, and then hajj. This is the sequence that is mentioned in the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And this ordering or the sequencing is a natural sequence. It's a shari'i, yani a religious, it's significant religiously as well. And it's also nuzuli, in the sense that with respect to the revelations and how they came on the Prophet ﷺ, this is the order that we find. Normally, in some discussions, people, they say that Islam is based on 5 pillars, and they mention kalima, salah, and then fasting, and then zakat and hajj. That is wrong. They mention fasting first, and then they mention zakat later. This is not the correct sequence. Once Sayyidina Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu ta'ala an was a Sahabi of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His student mentioned a hadith in front of Sayyidina Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, and he mentioned these 5 pillars of the deen of Islam. But the student, he mentioned Hajj first and fasting later. So Hazrat Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, he came in a state of jalal, became angry, upset, and said, Lala, Saum, Sauma Ramadan wal Hajj. And this is how the Prophet ﷺ taught us. And he first the fast of Ramadan and then Hajj. This is the order, this is the sequence that the Prophet ﷺ has taught us. So this ordering is important. That Salah and then Zakat, and after Zakat, then we have fasting. So sometimes people, they say the opposite. They say fasting first and then Zakat. Maybe because Zakat is difficult to pay or whatever the cause is. But we should understand the ordering. This is the order that is mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is also the order that we have in the deen of Islam. It's a Shari'i ordering. So initially, the Prophet ﷺ, he announced that, Ya ayyuhan nas, qulu la ilaha illallah tuflihu. So the first requirement on the deen of Islam is to say La ilaha illallah. That's the kalima, and you will be successful. So this was the first command that came. Qulu la ilaha illallah. Then second was that during the Makkan period, Salah became mandatory. And then in the Madani period, in the second year of Hijrah, Zakat becomes obligatory. And then in that same year, the second year of Hijrah, later on, fasting becomes mandatory, a fariza. And then in the 6th year of Hijrah or the 7th year of Hijrah, Hajj becomes obligatory. So this is the tartib, this is the sequence, this is the order that first kalima became fard, then salah became fard, then zakat became fard, then roza, then fasting became fard, and then finally Hajj was made obligatory. Not only is this a shari'i or a tartib or a sequence that we find in the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, but this is also a natural sequence. It's a tabi'i. It's a natural ordering. And the reason is because these 5 pillars, these 5 foundations, these 5 arkan, they are in reality 5 levels of manifesting our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 5 ways in which we can manifest our muhabba for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first manifestation of our love is that the lover, they express their praise and they glorify the qualities of his beloved. The lover, he wants to mention the kamalat and the qualities and the attributes of his beloved. So when a person recites the kalima, they are in fact praising and mentioning the qualities of their Rabb. La ilaha illallah. The second level of muhabba, of love, is that the lover wants to do munajat. They want to converse, they want to talk with their beloved. They want to seek out their beloved. That's why you see in the dunya as well, people are trying to dial the other person's number, calling them, and after every few minutes they're calling them. After every few hours they're calling them. Where are you? What are you doing? I'm missing you. You wake up at night and you're calling them. In the form of salah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the second level by which we can express and manifest our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We pray salah 5 times every day. And then we are also in that salah conversing and talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third level is when the lover wants to now start spending on his beloved. Simply talking and conversing is not enough. The lover, he earns and then he gifts He gives gifts to his beloved. He spends on his beloved. And you're earning and you're gifting to your beloved. So this is what zakat is. We see the manifestation of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this way, that a person, they earn throughout the whole year, they save their money, and then at the end of the year, when the command of the beloved when the command of the beloved comes, they spend to make their beloved happy. This is the philosophy, the reality of zakat. And then the fourth stage is that now the lover, he wants to let go of all the pleasures of the dunya. He just wants to indulge in the pleasure of the companionship with his beloved. He doesn't even care about food, about water. He's willing to stay hungry, willing to stay thirsty. This is fasting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us fasting, and in the form of fasting, we can manifest this level of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And finally, last is when the beloved's love becomes so intense in the heart of the lover. When the lover is totally in love and his love for his beloved is so intense that now it becomes difficult for the lover to stay in his own home. He becomes restless. He wants to leave his house and reach the house of his beloved. And he's now going and then going to the neighborhood of the beloved, and then he's happy. And on the way he's chanting, and he doesn't care about the way he looks. He's letting go of all adornments, all beauty. He just wants to go to meet his beloved. He's crazy in love. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us in the form of Hajj. Hajj is a manifestation of this love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that a person, they let go of their zinat, their beauty. They have disheveled hair. They're crazy in love for Allah ta'ala. And in that muhabbat of Allah, they're chanting labbaik Allahumma labbaik. They're wearing ihram. And then when they reach the house of Allah, they're kissing the house of Allah. They are attaching themselves to multazim. They are doing tawaf. They're going round and around the house of their beloved. They're going on one hill of Safa, then rushing to the other hill, Marwa, then again Safa, then again Marwa. Then some are going to Mina, then Muzdalifa, then Arafah. The whole Hajj is a manifestation of this love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are 5 pillars that we have in the deen of Islam, and this is the order that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. That Tawheed, yani Shahadatain, the Kalima, and then Salah, and then after Salah we have Zakat. This is the reason why Salah and Zakat are like twin brothers. In the Quran alone, there are 32 instances when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned Salah, and then right after Salah, immediately after Salah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Zakat as well, together in that one line, one after the other. In so many places, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings that tarteeb, that sequence, that after Salah, right after Salah, there is a command of Zakat. And this is also the reason, to the extent that we see in one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that Man lam yuzakke fala salata lahu. Fala salata lahu, that person who does not give zakat, that person's salah is not complete. That person's salah is incomplete if they haven't given the zakat. Means that it's not that we did one action and the other action is left. We did salah and then zakat is remaining. But no, what this hadith is teaching us is that the salah is still not complete. The completion, the perfection of salah, the acceptance of salah, the kubuli of salah is when we pay our zakat. Just like it comes in another hadith that the completion of our fast is through paying sadaqatul fitr. It is said that when a person does not pay sadaqatul fitr, the fast, it doesn't go up. It remains hanging. The takmil, yani the completion, the perfection of fasting is by paying Sadaqatul Fitr. In a similar way, the completion of Salah is by paying Zakat. Means that those who have a habit of praying 5 times every day, and mashallah, the people who are praying 5 times every day, they're praying regularly for the whole year. So it is now necessary that at the end of the year, they pay the zakat on their wealth so that their salah becomes complete, becomes perfect, and it's accepted in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Praying salah is one thing, kubuliya and acceptance is another thing. The kubuliya is linked with our paying zakat. And zakat is such a blessed fariza. It's such a sacred obligation that just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded this ummah to give zakat, in the same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the previous ummah to pay zakat as well. The only difference was that their rate of zakat was much, much more than our rate. They were commanded to pay 25%, 25%, 1/4 of their wealth. And the second difference was that the method for them in which they had to pay their zakat was more difficult, was harder. The method was that they had to separate the zakat wealth, the zakat money, and then they had to put that zakat money on a hill or some mountain, some area, and then they had to turn to one corner and start making dua to Allah, tawbah to Allah, istighfar, and make dua that Allah accept this wealth, this zakat money that we're offering you. And then a bolt would come from the sky, like a lightning bolt. It would strike that wealth, would burn that wealth into ashes, and then the people would become happy that our zakat was accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So until they would get that lightning bolt from the sky, they would continue making dua that Allah accept our wealth. Even if it took them 1 month, they would continue making dua. So it's much harder way to pay zakat. For us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the matter very easy, very simple. The rate is also very less. Compared to that 25%, we just have to pay 2.5% at the end of the year. And second, if we see that for them, they had to wait for the lightning bolt, it would destroy that wealth would not be of any use. But the ease that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for us is that we just need to separate this zakat money, and then we can distribute this zakat money among people around us, needy people around us, and other people can benefit from this. So we don't need to destroy that money. We can spend it on other people. And then even more, Islam, the Deen, the Sharia says that if you have relatives who are needy, you can give this zakat money to them as well. For example, you can give it to your brother and sister if they're needy, if they're zakat eligible, and if they're living in different houses as yours, they're living separately, not dependents, separate arrangement. Then if they are zakat eligible, you can give it to them. You can give it to your uncle, you can give it to your khala, as long as they're living separately with separate arrangements. In the Deen of Islam, there are only three relationships which one cannot give zakat to. So this is something to understand. Only three relations which a person cannot give zakat to. Number one, this is a legal point which I'm mentioning in spiritual dimension. But anyway, the first relation that we cannot give zakat to are known as our usul. Usul means your father, your mother, your grandfather, grandmother, and so on and so forth. Yani your parents, and then their parents, and then their parents. So one cannot give zakat to them. Second, we cannot give zakat to what we call our furu. Furu is our descendants. So our children, our sons and daughter, then their sons and daughter, then their sons and daughter. So we cannot give zakat to them as well. And third is what we call zawjiyat, that a husband cannot give zakat to his wife, and a wife cannot give zakat to her husband. Apart from these three relations, all the other relations, even if it's a brother or sister, provided they're separate, you're living separately from them, their houses are different, then you can give zakat to them even. You can give zakat to your brother, your sister, if they're zakat eligible. So it's not like previous ummah that you had to separate the wealth and then put on a hill and the fire would come and destroy it. Allah Ta'ala has made the process so simple and easy for us. You can separate the zakat money, you can give it to your brother, you can give it to your sister, you can give it to your relatives who are needy, who are zakat eligible. And if you do so, you will get double the reward. You will get one reward for discharging this obligation of zakat, and the second, you will get the reward for doing sila rahmi, for joining these ties of kinship. For joining these ties of kinship. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the previous ummah that they can give zakat. They have to give zakat as well. So for example, in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala mentions about Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam, وَذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ Ismail, that mention in the book Ismail alayhi salam, إِنَّهُ كَانَ صَادِقَ الْوَعْدِ وَكَانَ رَسُولًا نَبِيًّا. He was true to his promise, and he was a messenger and a prophet of Allah. وَكَانَ يَأْمُرُ أَهْلَهُ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ. وَكَانَ يَأْمُرُ أَهْلَهُ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ. And he used to enjoin on his people to pray salah and to give zakat. So Hazrat Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam would counsel his people, his kaum, his community, that they should pray salah and they should give zakat. Similarly, Allah Ta'ala mentions about Sayyidina Isa alayhi salatu wasalam also. Another previous ummah we see, he was also given this command to give zakat. So in Quran, Allah mentions that when Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam was born, the very first day, his first day of his life, he's born, and his mother, Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam, she brings the baby back home, and the people around in the community, they are shocked and they ask that, Maryam, where are you getting this child from? Ya ukhta Harun, ma kana abuki imra'a sawin wa ma kanat ummuki baghiya. Oh Maryam, oh sister of Harun, your father was not a man of evil, nor was your mother and was she immodest. Where is this baby coming from? فَأَشَارَتْ إِلَيْهِ. She just points to the baby. A 1-year-old child. Sorry, a 1-day-old child. One day. And they say, قَالُوا كَيْفَ نُكَلِّمُ مَنْ كَانَ فِي الْمَهْدِ السَّبِيًّا. They say, Maryam, what is wrong with you? How can this baby speak? This child who's in a cradle, how can he speak? And then this was the miracle. Now that 1-day-old Sayyidina Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, he speaks. And Allah mentions in the Quran, Qala, Sayyidina Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, Inni abdullah, that I am the servant of Allah. Atani al-kitab, Allah Ta'ala has given me the kitab, the scripture. Waja'alani nabiyya, and Allah Ta'ala made me a nabi. Waja'alani mubarakan aynama kuntu. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made me blessed wherever I am. Wherever I am, Allah Ta'ala has made me blessed. Wa awsani bis salati was zakati ma dumtu hayya. Wa awsani, and Allah has enjoined upon me to pray salah was zakati, and to give zakat. Ma dumtu hayya, for as long as I live. We should understand the importance of zakah. Hazrat Isa والسلام, is saying this on the very first day of his life, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded me to pay zakat. Allah Ta'ala has commanded me to pay zakat. So zakat is a sacred obligation that was there in the previous ummah as well. It is also a sacred obligation and a farz in our ummah as well. So we should give zakat, and when it comes to giving zakat, we should not be stingy. The wealth that Allah Ta'ala has given us, we are giving a portion of that same wealth to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not be stingy. Normally people worry about money, about finances, about difficult economic times and difficult financial times, and hence it becomes harder to give zakat. And it's understandable, surely, that some people might view zakat as burdensome because times are difficult financially, it's a financial crunch time. But we should always remember that in the deen of Islam, if the financial conditions are tough, if around you there are difficult economic times, the reward of giving zakat is going to be much, much more. The greater the difficulty, the greater the mujahida, the greater the struggle, the greater the reward of giving zakat would be in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because nafs does not like to give zakat. Nafs, our lower self, doesn't want to give zakat. We have to make this struggle against the nafs. And the more struggle, the more mukhalifat, the more we are opposing our nafs, the greater the reward. And we should also think from another perspective that if it is difficult for us, we are wealthy, alhamdulillah, we have so much wealth, we have so much comfort, we have so many blessings. If we are finding it difficult, to give wealth, to give zakah, then what about the ones who are not so fortunate as us, who have much lesser blessings than us? How much more needy they would be for that money? How much more needy they would be for our help to assist them with zakat money is going to be more rewarding in these troubled times, in these troubled financial and economic times. At the same time, that not only has the Sharia and the Deen of Islam given us this command, not only is Allah Ta'ala commanding us that we should give zakat, and it's not just command and there's that there are no rewards or benefits or wisdom associated with this. Rather, if we reflect upon zakat, there are tremendous benefits attached to giving zakat. There are tremendous benefits in giving zakat. So, the first benefit of giving zakat that comes in the Quran is that by means of giving zakat, it helps to improve one's spiritual condition. A person's tazkiyah is done. Tazkiyah means to purify ourselves of spiritual sins, to purify ourselves of inner sins, to remove the spiritual inner sins of the heart. And one of the ways to achieve that is to give zakat. In Quran, Allah Ta'ala says to the Prophet ﷺ that khuz min amwalihim sadaqa, that, oh, the Prophet ﷺ, you should take from their wealth this zakat. Here sadaqah is referring to zakat. Take their sadaqat wajiba. So I should mention that whatever a person spends in the path of Allah, one is called sadaqat nafila, yani nafil sadaqah. For example, a person spends on the poor, a person spends to make a masjid, they spend on the madrasa, they spend on needy students. This is all nafil sadaqah. And then there is another thing which is called giving zakat of your wealth. This is also called sadaqah, but this is sadaqat wajiba. Sadaqat wajiba. So sadaqah here means sadaqat wajiba, that wealth, which is mandatory, which is reference to zakat. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that, oh, the Prophet, oh, my beloved Messenger sallallahu, take zakat from their wealth. What's the benefit? That tutahhiruhum wa tuzakkihim biha, that this will clean their heart and purify their heart. This tazkiyah will happen. You know, this tazkiyah, this spiritual purification of the heart. Their heart will be cleansed of these feelings of love for the dunya, this greed for the dunya. This will have a purifying effect. Giving zakat will have a purifying, spiritually purifying effect on their heart. So in several other talks, we have spoken about tazkiyah. There are ways to attain tazkiyah. For attaining tazkiyah, we do remembrance, zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do muraqabah, we do mujahida. We are struggling against our soul. One other way to attain that tazkiyah in the Quran is to give wealth, is to give zakat in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Similarly, elsewhere in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala mentions, وَسَيُجَنَّبُهَا الْأَتْقَى الَّذِي يُؤْتِي مَالَهُ يَتَزَكَّى. that the righteous one, the muttaqi, they will abstain. And who are the muttaqi? He who gives from his wealth to purify himself, to do tazkiyah. So again, spending zakat, giving zakat is a means to attain tazkiyah. Just like zikr and tasbihat and tilawat and muraqabah, these are ways through which we can attain tazkiyah. Similarly, zakat is also a means to attain tazkiyah because the word zakat, lexically, linguistically, it means purity. So by giving zakat, the nafs becomes pure. Our lower self becomes pure. Then, after this, the second benefit is that not only our nafs becomes pure, the wealth itself becomes pure. If person deliberately and intentionally they're earning haram and they're mixing haram in their wealth, then that haram cannot be purified in any way. That haram cannot be purified. The haram will only be purified if you remove that haram. But many times it happens that unintentionally, accidentally, or unknowingly, not deliberately, there's some wealth that comes in our possession, and one doesn't even know about this. Maybe at job, we said something which was not technically truth. We said a lie, and we were sort of acting in a dishonest way. So it was unintentional, accidental, maybe a slip of our tongue. And then because of that, we got the income, but that income is also now doubtful because we said something that was wrong. So things like of that nature can happen, that unintentionally, not deliberately, we say some things which are dishonest at work. We use that as a means to earn some money, or some other wealth comes into our possession. We don't even know. Someone placed some money in our bank account. Now, what happens is when one gives a zakat, Allah Ta'ala, out of His mercy and His grace and His rahmah, Allah Ta'ala finishes any and every effect of haram in our wealth. The wealth becomes pure. The wealth becomes pure. That dishonest practice that we engaged in unintentionally, that lapse, that moment of lapse, that moment of slip, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His mercy, finishes and wipes away the effect of haram from our wealth. For businessmen, sometimes it happens that they're doing a business and their bank account, they receive some money. Now they don't know where is this money coming from, who is giving them this money. When a person gives a zakat, the haram effects of that wealth, they are wiped away. And this is such a big blessing because once the haram goes away, then the rizq that you eat, that you consume becomes halal. There is a barakah in that halal money. That same rizq, then you will be teaching, you will be giving it to your kids as well. You can feed them halal as well. So not giving zakat is endangering ourselves, endangering our wealth, because now the wealth remains impure. And if the wealth remains impure, then we are uh, feeding that to our children, to our family. So this will be doubly destructive because now we're feeding them haram and this will have an impact upon them. And this is so important. Our food that we eat has to be halal because it has a direct impact on our salah, on our dua. In one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that when a person they consume haram, then their salah is not accepted. Their duas are not accepted. They can continue to make dua for several days. They will be disheveled and they will be shabby and they will be rugged and they're making dua, they're thirsty and hungry. But Allah says that how can I accept their duas? Because what they're eating is haram, what they're wearing is haram. So this is no small issue. This is such a big issue. It has an impact not just on the rizq, but also on our ibadat and our salah, our duas. And such a beautiful way in which we can make our wealth pure, such an easy way is that any unintentionally or unconsciously or uh, some wealth comes into some haram element comes in our wealth and we're not aware of that, just give zakat. Allah Ta'ala wipes away the effect of haram. Then the third benefit of giving zakat is that zakat also becomes a means to increase our wealth. Because one of the meanings of zakat is increase. Zakat means purity, it also means increase. By means of giving zakat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases the wealth of that individual. In Quran, Allah Ta'ala says, Yamhaqullahu riba. Allah Ta'ala destroys riba. Wa yurbis sadaqat. And Allah Ta'ala increases charity. The sadaqah will increase your wealth. It will never decrease your wealth. Allah Ta'ala will increase it quantitatively. Allah Ta'ala will put more barakah in that wealth as well. Similarly, elsewhere in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala mentions that وَمَا آتَيْتُم مِّن زَكَاةٍ تُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُضْعِفُونَ. That what you give in zakat, and you give in zakat, and this is important, that you're giving in zakat, turiduna wajh Allah, seeking the pleasure of Allah. So you're not giving zakat with for showing off or for broadcasting it or publicizing it or making other people know that I've given this much zakat. So you're giving it not for ostentation, for raya, but turiduna wajh Allah. You're giving it solely and purely for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then look what Allah ta'ala is saying. فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُزْعِفُونَ. Muz'ifu means izafa. Allah will multiply it for you. That wealth that you're giving, Allah will multiply it and return it back to you. And this is a reality. This is a reality. This is such a beautiful reality that if we can understand that by giving wealth in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your wealth will increase. This is absolute guarantee that by giving wealth in the path of Allah, your wealth will only increase. And the only question is that how much will your wealth increase? And that will depend upon your sincerity. At a base level, Allah Ta'ala promises that I will increase your wealth 10 times. You give one in the path of Allah, Allah will return 10 to you. This is normal. This is a base level. Base level. And my own, some of our own teachers, they mention, my own sheikh, you mentioned that I've seen so many times in my own life, this one converting into 10. So many times, several times. I give one and Allah gives me 10. And then Allah says that if He wishes, He can multiply this. He can multiply this beyond 10. So the example that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives in the Quran is about like a grain of wheat. And you put that one dana, one seed, and it multiplies into seven branches, and each one of them has 100 more seeds, and it leads to 700. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I can give you for every one that you give, I can give you 700 in return. And then Allah ta'ala continues, Wallahu yarzuku man yasha'u bighayri hisab. If Allah wants, Allah can give you even more than that 700. Subhanallah. For one seed, Allah returns you 700. And we see that every day. We see that in people who are familiar with agriculture. You put one seed, Allah returns you 700. And this is the same thing that happens with wealth as well. With wealth, with sadaqah, with zakah. You give one in the path of Allah, Allah will multiply it and return it back to you. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, and Prophet ﷺ took an oath, a qasam, swore by Allah, took a qasam by Allah Ta'ala and said that whoever spends their wealth in the path of Allah, their wealth will never reduce, will never ever reduce. And then the Prophet ﷺ also said another thing, that وَمَا ذَادَ اللَّهُ عَفًّا عَبْدًا لِعَفٍ إِلَى عِزَّةٍ. That whoever, that whoever forgives another person, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will only increase the izzat of this person. And whoever acquires humility, then Allah will increase the honor of that individual. But the first thing that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned here was that whoever spends in the path of Allah, that I swear by Allah that that person's wealth will never ever reduce, will never reduce. So, in fact, there's a beautiful hadith where once the Prophet ﷺ said to Sayyidina Bilal radiallahu ta'ala that, oh Bilal, uh, anfiq Bilal, Bilal, spend money. Wala takhsha, wala takhsha, and do not fear poverty. Min zil arshi iqlala, from the Lord of the throne. Spend, Bilal, do not fear poverty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Spend it, Bilal. Don't fear poverty. Spend with an open heart. And you know this word, uh, nufuq or infaq, fi sabilillah, to spend in the path of Allah. Nufuq in Arabic means a tunnel. If you go to Makkah Mukarramah, you have different tunnels there. And tunnel is that you enter from one side and then you have to come out from the other side. So the word nufuq is used here because you give from one hand and then Allah will give it back to you from the other hand. You give from one hand and you will receive from the other hand. Nufuq. That's why in Quran Allah Ta'ala mentions that who is going to give this qarz-e hasana to Allah? Innal musaddiqina wal musaddiqat. Subhanallah. Allah Ta'ala is saying that whoever وَأَقْرَضُ qardan hasana, that whoever gives wealth, they spend wealth in the path of Allah, they're actually giving it to Allah. You're giving it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not insan, it's not a human being, right? So that wealth that we're getting is also from Allah. We're giving it to Allah. And then Allah Ta'ala says, يُضَاعِفُ لَهُمْ, we will multiply that wealth and return it back to you. وَلَهُمْ أَجْرٌ كَرِيمٌ, and we will also give them ajr kareem. In other place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُهُ. That, this is the other slide. وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُهُ. That whatever you spend in the path of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you a better thing. Allah will give it to you, guaranteed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give it to you. It's not something that we can doubt. This is Quran. All right. Then the fourth benefit is that not only does our wealth increase, but the wealth is also protected. Now, in what sense? Many times it happens that we have money, we have wealth, but God forbid some disaster happens. There is a fire, or someone comes and steals that money from us. Sometimes there are natural disasters that happen. There's some balayat. There's some tragedies that can happen in a person's life, and as a result, the person loses all of that money. To save oneself from all such losses and all such disasters and all such musibah, financial musibah, one of the most effective ways is to give zakat. It protects our wealth. This is the reason why the Prophet ﷺ said that hassinu amwalakum bil zakat. Hassinu amwalakum bil zakat, that protects your wealth by means of giving zakat. And the word that the Prophet ﷺ used here was hassinu. Hassinu means like a fortress, that protect it into a fortress. Protect your wealth like you're placing it inside a fortress. Like we put our wealth in lockers and banks, and we think that's sort of a sound protection. So here the Prophet ﷺ is saying that you can place your wealth into the fortress of Allah's protection. How? By giving zakat. And on the other hand, the Prophet ﷺ said that when the zakat money is not given, and that zakat money becomes mixed with their other wealth, with the person's their own other wealth. So the zakat is not given, it's mixing with their other wealth, then this becomes the means to destroy the remaining wealth. The other wealth is destroyed as a result of this mixture. And thus it's important that we take out our zakat so that the remaining wealth will be protected, will come in the hifazat, in this protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the fifth benefit is that it also helps to reduce this bridge, this gulf between the wealthy, the rich, and the needy, the poor. It helps to reduce the inequalities in the society. Now, we should understand this. We don't have time to go into the details, but the principle is that Allah Ta'ala, out of His own wisdom, infinite wisdom, has made this dunya in such a way that some are wealthy and some are poor. If everyone was to become wealthy, or if everyone was to become poor, the society will not be able to function. The society will crumble. This is part of the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That uh, uh, if the inequality remains to a certain proportion, then it's okay. But if the bridge and the gulf widens between the rich, the haves and the haves not, the rich then will become richer, the poor will become poorer, and this is going to lead to corruption in the society. When the animals of those who are rich are eating food which is better than what the poor are able to get, then what will happen to those poor people? Right? They will be inviting. They will try to seek out other ways in which they can get money. They will be working with you in your shop, and they might want to engage in practices which are deceptive. They might use unlawful means to take wealth away from you. So this can lead to corruption and fasad and fitna in the society. There should be a proportionality here, that the poor people should have enough that they can at least feed themselves, feed their family, they can wear proper clothes. And this is the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mandated a particular percentage. And that is also based upon hikmat, that the rich, they should pay 2.5% of their excess. And if they have agricultural produce, then 10% or 5% of that. If there are some minerals, then 20% of that. This was the reason. So if you have these proportions, and if we really had a society like that, where everyone, all of humanity, was abiding by the zakah. In fact, I just remember a few years ago, there was this World Bank report that said that if all the rich nations of the country were to provide 2.5% of the money that they spend on their grain reserves, like barley and jute and wheat, just 2.5% of that on eradicating famine and poverty, then the poverty will be finished from the face of this earth. 2.5%. And that's what the percentage of zakat is, 2.5%. So if you really had like an ideal society where the teachings of Islam and the teachings of zakat were made applicable, then we can see how this bridge, we can prevent the widening of this bridge. We can ensure circulation of wealth. We can ensure that at least the poor are not dying of their poverty. And this was also the reason why we had such a society like that 1400 years ago. When we look at the Khulafai Rashidun, the era, the societies that they created at that time, it was such a beautiful society. We didn't have these problems of inequality and poverty. that people in the books it's mentioned that the people would take their wealth and gold out on the streets of Medina Munawwara, and they would have to ask, is there anyone who is eligible to take this zakat money? This is zakat. Is there anyone eligible to take the zakat money? Any people were at that level that people would have to go out and ask, is there anyone who is willing to take the zakat money? And also from a business perspective, like we said, that it leads to circulation of wealth. If there is a person who's an industrialist, a factory owner, they're worried that why should I pay zakah? I'm giving zakat, and this is going to reflect badly in my account, negative. But what happens if you just reflect when a person gives zakat to the poor? We're increasing the purchasing power for that person. Now that poor individual can also buy, and he will buy things from you. He's not going to store that money. He's going to buy food and drink and garments and clothes and things from you. Money will come back to you. The poor is able to just make his ends meet. That's the only issue. That's the only advantage to him, that he is able to meet, he is able to make his ends meet, but that wealth will come back to you. The wealth that you're spending and giving zakat to the poor, he's going to buy what he needs. That wealth will come back to you. The wealth will come back to you. The advantage is that you will not be pushing that poor person on the verge of suicide, that he doesn't have any place to go to. You will be preventing that. So this is the barakah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept in fasting. And this is the reason why this sadaqah, this is not fasting, this zakah, sorry, this zakah. This zakat, or and again we said both types of zakat, zakat-e-nafila, zakat-e-wajib. This is one of the afzal, one of the most meritorious ibadat. Hazrat Umar bin Khattab radiallahu ta'ala an, he would say that when you compare different actions, there was a competition between actions. Faqalat as-sadaqa ana afzal. And Sadaqah said that I'm afzal. And there is also another reason why Sadaqah is so meritorious, which is mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet. So now when we turn to the hadith of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, we learned some other benefits. So in one hadith, the Prophet said that this sadaqah is a means by which you can earn shifa. You can heal yourself. It provides cure for your sicknesses, cure for your illnesses. And the Prophet in fact instructed us that you should treat your patients with the sadaqah. SubhanAllah, as the Sheikh was mentioning the story about a person who had such a strong yaqeen on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the hadith of the Prophet that whenever he would become sick, so he wouldn't eat any medicine. No, you should eat, this is not to say that you shouldn't eat medicine or have medicine. But the yaqeen, the tawakkul was so high that he would say that I am giving you this money, and please give this money to some poor needy person. And especially if some needy person was sick. So buy medicines for that person and give those medicines to him. And inshallah, Allah Ta'ala will give me shifa. And subhanAllah, every single time this would happen, Allah Ta'ala would give shifa to that individual. So whoever has a habit of giving sadaqah in the path of Allah, then Allah Ta'ala will give shifa to that individual. In the books, it's mentioned that Hazrat Abdullah bin Mubarak, rahmatullah alayh, saw a person who was bleeding on his from his knee, and the blood was profusely coming out from his knee. And he asked him that, what happened to your knee? And he said that I injured myself, and it has been 7 years, and this blood is still seeping out. And I don't know. I've went to so many doctors. I don't know what to do. So Hazrat Abdullah bin Mubarak rahmatullah alayh, he said that go to a community where people don't have access to drinking water, and then dig a well for them, and then provide them with that running water. And in return, inshallah, Allah will take care of this blood that is flowing out from your knee. And that person did that. He went and he dug a well and made arrangements for drinking water. And as a result, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him shifa. So today also the same principle applies. That if we give sadaqah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by means of this can also give us a shifa. Shifa does not lie in that medicine. Shifa lies in the hand of Allah. Allah Ta'ala is a Shafi. If Allah wishes to put shifa in that medicine, Allah can put that shifa in that medicine. Allah Ta'ala can give shifa through sadaqah as well. And sadaqah also washes away the sins of the heart. So we see so many things are purified. The wealth becomes purified, the nafs becomes purified, and the heart becomes purified. There's a tazkiyah of the heart as well. That take sadaqah tutahhiruhum wa tuzakkihim biha. And then there's another, the ayat continues, wasalli alayhim, and oh my beloved, make dua for them. Inna salataka sakanul lahum. For your dua will provide sukoon to them, will provide itminan and tranquility to them. Then sadaqah also is a means by which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts barakah in the age of a person. Allah ta'ala grants a life, a long life of afiyah, a life of piety. In hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that inna sadaqatul muslim tazidu fil umar. That the sadaqah that a Muslim gives is a means by which Allah increases the umar, the age of that person. And sadaqah also saves this is a very big blessing, that sadaqah saves a person from a bad ending, from a bad death. In hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that inna sadaqah la tudfiu ghazaba rabbi wa tudfiu maitatasu. That it extinguishes the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it prevents a person from dying a bad death. And now no one says that giving one should zakat has to be given, but sadaqah nafila, then there's no limit. Person can give whatever they want. A person can give, they can give a small amount, they can give a larger amount, and Allah Ta'ala will reward that person accordingly. So we see that in the month of Ramadan, normally this is the time when people are spending their zakat. These are the months, so Rajab, Shaban, and Ramadan. These are the months when people normally spend their zakat, and we should do so. We should spend our zakat, and we should do so with the open heart, not with a constricted heart, not feeling that this is a boj and a burden, rather doing it with an open heart. The happy we are from the inside, the more barakah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give to us in our wealth. So we should give zakat, number one, and we should give zakat with an open heart. Some people, they are wealthy. And there are some people who are guardians of their wealth. Some are wealthy, some are guardians of wealth. Who are wealthy? Wealthy are those whom Allah Ta'ala has given them, and then they give zakat, they give sadaqat, and then as a result of that, Allah increases, multiplies their wealth further in the dunya, and Allah will make them wealthy in akhirah as well. These are the truly wealthy ones. And then there are others who are guardians of wealth, who just keep storing and accumulating wealth. They're not spending. They're just protecting the wealth, not spending that wealth. And the outcome would be that the moment they pass away, then that same wealth will pass into the inheritors, their heirs. and this person will be bereft of any benefit in akhirah of that wealth. So we should become wealthy truly in the dunya as well as in the akhirah. And the way is that we spend that wealth in the path of Allah. Allah will give more. Give zakat. Now, when you give zakat, uh, we should prioritize giving zakat to our relatives. If we have any relatives who are zakat eligible, they have a greater right. Our relatives, if they are zakat eligible, and remember, relatives here means those three, excluding those three relationships, the usul, the furu, and zawjiyat. Our parents and children, their children, and then husband, wife. So excluding that, if we have relatives who are living separately, different arrangements, even if it's brother, sister, or uncle, aunt, and they're needy, they're zakat eligible, then they have a greater right over us. But again, we should remember that do not give zakat to them in such a way that is embarrassing for them. Don't demean them. Give them with the izzat of nafs. Don't uh, uh, give zakat and then embarrass them or harm their izzat and nafs. Everyone has a sense of self-respect, self-esteem, self-respect. Don't hurt that self-respect in giving zakat to them. The way, a preferred way is that don't use the word zakat while giving that money. You can say that, I wanted to give this so that you could spend this. There are other ways in which you can give them as a gift. You can even say that this is a gift from me, a hadiah. Please accept this hadiah or a gift. That's completely permissible. You don't need to mention that this is zakat money. You don't need to mention the word that this is zakat money. You can give it as a gift. You can give it as some other that I'll be very happy if you take this. You can use this. That is better. And also, once we give zakah, once we give them zakat, don't uh, brag about that later on, that I gave you that money. We should not bring that as a favor that we did to them. Similarly, we can also give zakat to those who are poor. So beyond the relatives, if they're poor, needy people, we give them. And again, the same principle applies, that don't embarrass them. Don't demean them, but give them with the izzat of their nafs, with that self-esteem, that self-respect that they deserve. In some cases, we can perhaps give them cash. People ask this question, that should I give them grains and wheat and things like commodities, or should I give them cash? So it depends on a case-by-case basis. Generally, cash would be better because then they can use that for their own, for buying whatever they need. But what is really important here is that we should not broadcast and publicize this. This, unfortunately, in the social media age that we live in, every ibadah that we do, we have a habit of trying to publicize that I gave these many bags of these many things to these many poor people. I gave this much charity to this much organizations and this time. So this is wasting away our ibadah. We should not broadcast this. We should not publicize this. We should have try to do it with ikhlas, with sincerity. We should, in fact, be worried about the qabuliyah, that, Ya Allah, I'm giving this to you. Allah, I ask you that you accept this from me. Allah, purify my intention. Make my intentions pure. And Allah, remove any element of riyā and ostentation from my heart. Grant me ikhlas, because the greater the ikhlas is in that amal, the greater the qabuliyat, the greater the barakah, and Allah will multiply the reward multi times. Allah will multiply the reward. That wealth will come back with the greater barakah if we spend it with sincerity, with ikhlas. So don't do tazleel. Don't belittle the other person while giving zakat. And another thing is, people ask about their timing. Then it's better that we give zakat before Eid. Give zakat to them right now. At least even give them sadaqatul fitr before Eid if you want to. Why? So that they can prepare for Ramadan. They can prepare for Ramadan. These are poor people. These are people who have children. Their children will be asking their parents that, oh, my father, I also want to buy clothes. I also want to buy my shoes. And the children, they don't know that their father is poor. And the fathers can't tell that to their children. The children are children. They don't know that their parents are poor. They're just asking that, oh, my father, when will I get my Eid dress? When will I get my shoes? When will I get my Eid? When will I get my toys? And they're asking their father over and over again. And then the father is also thinking that, yes, the month of Ramadan is starting. And now, yes, the Eid will be coming. How will I make arrangements for my family? How will I make arrangements for my kids? So we should give them before, at least give them before so that they can spend a good Ramadan. They can have a nice time. They can buy what they want. Their children can be happy. Their children can do some shopping, buy dresses for them, buy shoes for themselves, buy food for themselves. Uh, give zakat to them, give them in time, so that they can also participate in this celebration. They can also participate in this month of ibadah. And also, one of the best places to give zakat is those Islamic institutions which are zakat eligible, where poor students are studying. You can give zakat to them. You can give even sadaqat to them. Those are the best places to give zakat as well as sadaqat. Whether Because one gets double the reward. Spending and giving to madaris, one can get double the reward. One reward is for discharging our obligation of zakat, and the second is that we will be contributing to the work of deen. We'll be contributing to the work of deen, and will supporting the work of deen. So inshallah, Allah will double the reward for this amal. People ask about welfare trust. So one has to be cautious, like a hospital or a foundation or a welfare institution. One has to be cautious. One has to ascertain whether the management of that welfare trust are people who understand the rules of zakat. Because you cannot use zakat money to buy hospital equipment or uh, construct a building or even construct a masjid. One has to be careful. One has to see that who is on the board. One has to see who are the people managing it. And if we see reliable people there, then we can give it to them. Otherwise, it's better to avoid. All right, now I want to move ahead and discuss very quickly some of the important legal dimensions, give you a summary about the legal dimensions. I know this is a whole, we don't have time, so we cannot go into the details, but at least as a reminder, some important points about the legal dimension of zakah. So we've already done this. That linguistically, zakat means purity, growth, blessing. In Islamic law, it means that you give a fixed amount of specified wealth to a needy Muslim for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, what are the conditions for zakat? The person has to be a Muslim. So the Muslims, they give zakat. Okay, let me just open this. All right. So conditions for zakat, the person has to be Muslim. They have to be adult. Adult here means they have to be baligh. So children, they don't need to give zakat. They have to be sane, not insane, and be in a state of sanity, plus they also need to be owner and possessor of the wealth, which is equaling nisab. And we'll do what nisab is in a moment. Owner and possessor of that wealth that is equaling nisab. And they have to own that nisab amount after 1 lunar year. They have to own that nisab amount after a lunar year. Now, what is nisab? So nisab is, for gold, it's about 87.5 grams, or its equivalent in cash. And silver is 613 grams, or its equivalent in cash. And if a person only possesses gold, they only possess gold, then you will use the gold's nisab, and that's really rare. That normally doesn't happen because you have currency, you have silver, you have other things. So what normally happens is second thing, that is if you possess mixed assets, like you have gold and you have silver and you have some currency and you have some other maybe some things that you want to sell for business, all of that, then you will have to use the silver nisab, which is 613 grams, or its equivalent in cash. So this is the nisab that we are speaking about in the previous slide, that the one who's the owner and possessor of wealth equaling this much, equaling. So you can calculate this. You can just see that in the place, locality where you are, location, city. So what is 612 or 613 grams of silver? And then if a person has excess, any surplus wealth of that amount, and plus 1 lunar year has passed on that wealth, then they are what we call sahib-e-nisa. They are individuals who need to pay zakat. So understand that this nisab, this surplus wealth, this has to 1 lunar year should have passed. But when we say 1 lunar year should have passed, it doesn't mean that for every single penny, on every single penny, 1 lunar year should have passed. Rather, what we mean by that is that at the start of the year and then the last date of that year, a person should be sahib-e-nisab. Person should be in possession of the nisab amount at the start of the year and at the last date of the year. In between, the ups and downs are not taken into consideration. We're just looking at the end points. That are the 2 end points of the lunar year. They should be in possession of the nisab amount. If that is if that is the case, then we meet this condition that 1 lunar year has passed on that wealth. All right. And how do you calculate? So this is what I was just explaining, that the day you own the nisab amount, after you deduct the liabilities, so you pencil this Islamic date in your diary that this is the start date. So this is the first endpoint. This could be, for example, 1st of Shaban. It has to be the lunar month, the lunar date. 1st of Shaban or 1st of Ramadan. If a person already has the date, will have to use that. If they don't, then you can start this year and say that, okay, from 1st of Ramadan or 15th of Shaban, this will be, for example, my starting date. So you pencil that date. And then it will make no difference whether the wealth increases or decreases during the course of the year. 1 lunar year later, and if you say 1st Shaban is my starting date, the next year on the 1st of Shaban, we'll see that if you possess the current nisab amount after deducting the liabilities are the loans that you have to pay to others. So after deducting the liabilities on that very same Islamic date, so if you possess the nisab, then you will have to pay 2.5% on your wealth as zakat. And this process will keep on happening every year until you reach a particular year where on the 1st of Shaban, you do not have enough surplus wealth that is equaling the nisab amount. Rather, the wealth is less than the nisab amount. So in that case, then you don't have to pay zakat. Or, God forbid, all of your wealth is lost. So in that case, also, then you will no longer be viewed as sahib in nisab, and hence you will not have to pay zakat. So what are the zakatable assets? So what are those assets on which a person has to pay zakat? So basically, for our purposes, uh, gold and silver, these are two important ones. Third is cash. This is also important. And fourth is business stock. This is what we call mal tajarat, products or commodities that you have with you, which are bought with the intention of trading, of doing business. I think these four are things that normally people have: gold, silver, cash, and some business items. To complete the picture, there are two other things: agricultural produce and animals and livestock. So we won't be going into those two because those are specific and the rules are sort of separate. We can, if someone has any questions about that, they can inshallah email, and we can answer it there, inshallah. But the first three, it's really important that we have an understanding about gold, silver, cash, and business stock. So when we say gold and silver, let's do it gold. So whether a person has gold in the form of a coin, a gold coin, or a gold bar, or a gold jewelry, or a gold utensil, all of that is included. All of that is zakatable. Similarly, irrespective whether that gold is being used, for example, a woman, they have a gold jewelry, so and they're using that. So irrespective of whether they're using it or they're not using it, it's zakatable. And similarly, irrespective whether that gold is mixed with some other pearl or necklace or some other stone, or it's pure. In both cases, it is zakatable, right? So we'll have to, in the case of mixed, we'll have to see that what proportion of that is gold. And whatever the proportion of gold is in that mixture, we'll have to pay zakat on that. So understand that gold, in all of its, whether it's coin, bar, utensil, jewelry, whether that jewelry is used or just kept aside, whether that jewelry is pure or it's mixed, all of this is zakatable. Similarly, the same applies to silver as well. Whether it's silver coin, silver jewelry, silver utensils, whether they're in use or just set aside, or whether they're pure or mixed, they're also all zakatable. Okay. For cash, cash is also zakatable. So cash, whether it's our whatever currency, uh, and similarly, cash would also include a loan that you gave someone or an amanat that you gave someone, and you have hope that this person will return it back to you. So you will include that in the calculation as well. This is also zakatable. And finally, business stock is that tijarat, that those products that you have, merchandise that you have bought with the intention to sell, and that intention to sell remains with you. So both these conditions are important for something to qualify as a merchandise, trade merchandise, that you have the intention to sell it, and that you bought it with the intention to sell it, and that intention to sell it is still there, right? So if you meet these two conditions, then that would be counted as trade merchandise, and this will also be zakatable. So jewelry besides gold, so not zakatable assets would be jewelry which is besides gold and silver. So for example, diamonds or platinum, that would not be counted as zakatable asset. Uh, Similarly, cars or properties or household appliances which are for home use. So these are all non-zakatable assets. Yes, if person has a car that they bought with the intention to sell, and they still have the intention to sell, so it's now going to be treated as a business product, as a trade merchandise, and then there will be zakat on that. Now, paying zakat, when a person pays zakat, what are the things that we should keep in mind? Number one is that we should not delay in paying zakat, and discharge this obligation sooner the better. In fact, we can discharge this even before the year. So we can give advance zakat. Advance zakat, we can subtract the money, and then we can use that to give throughout the whole year. Second thing is intention is necessary while giving zakat. If a person doesn't make intention, they just give it like that, then they will still need to pay zakat later. So one has to make a concise intention. You can make two intentions. Either you can make an intention at the time of giving zakat to a zakat eligible person, or you can make a niyat that I'm separating this money from my wealth, and this money that I'm separating, this is zakat fund. And then I can use this zakat fund and distribute it later on to those people who are zakat eligible. So whether you are giving that zakat money to a recipient, or you are separating that zakat money from your remaining money, one has to make an intention at that time. Similarly, people ask this question, that can we pay on behalf of our spouse or children? It's permissible that you can discharge someone else's zakat from your own wealth if you want to, on the condition that you have approval from the other side. All right. Now we come to this question about those who, uh, the recipients of zakat. And this is Surah Baqarah, Surah Toba, sorry. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the categories of people who are eligible for receiving zakat. First are those who are poor and needy. These are the people who do not own any zakatable assets, nor surplus assets beyond their home use, beyond their personal assets that equal the nisab. So they don't have any surplus assets that equal the nisab. Lil fuqara wal masakin. Fuqara are actually people who don't have any wealth. Needy masakin are those who don't have the surplus asset which equals nisab. So both will be zakat eligible. Similarly, those individuals whose liabilities they exceed their zakatable and surplus assets, debtors. So there can be cases like that as well, where someone is in some immense debt that it exceeds their assets that they have. Third is travelers, those who are in desperate situations that have no access to their personal money. Fourth, fi sabilillah, those who are in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Next is mu'allafatul qulub, those Muslims whose heart are drawn near to Islam by giving them a sum of money. You cannot give to non-Muslims. Non-Muslims, one cannot give zakat money to non-Muslims. That part was there only at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but doesn't apply in our context. And similarly, zakat collectors. Those zakat collectors were commissioned by the government to collect zakat funds on behalf of the poor. Similarly, that slave who is to be set free, one can pay zakat to set a slave free as well. That's not mentioned here, but it's mentioned in the ayah. وَفِي الرِّقَابِ. So, in summary, there are two categories in the society. One is what the Sharia views as wealthy people. They are the ones upon whom zakat is mandatory. And then there's another tabaqa, another segment of the society which are viewed by the Sharia as needy, and for them it's permissible to receive zakat. So the rich will give zakat to the needy. And how do we distinguish between who are rich and who are needy? So we do that by this standard that the Shariat has given us, which is the nisab that we mentioned right at the start, 613 grams of silver. That's the nisab. Okay, now last thing is that those who cannot take zakat, here I think some of people are asking this question also. You cannot give a non-Muslim zakat, but you can give sadaqah, yani nafli sadaqah. That you can still give to non-Muslims. Second, one cannot give zakat to the descendants of the family of the Prophet ﷺ, any Hashimi or Sayyid. So they shouldn't be Hashimi or Sayyid. Third is, I've already mentioned that the three relations that you cannot give zakat to: your usul, yani your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents; your furu, one's children, and grandchildren, great-grandchildren; and the zawjiyat, one's wife or one's husband, your spouse. These three also are zakat ineligible. Likewise, welfare projects and hospitals and uh, construction projects for mosques and hospitals. Again, for all of these things, construction projects, one cannot take zakat for these. Hospitals, one again has to be sure that who are the people managing the hospitals. If if you see people who are uh, aware of the rules of zakat, religious scholars, then one can give them, and they can use that in a way that is in line with the Sharia. Uh, that also applies to general welfare projects as well. Uh, so the important point here is that zakat has to be given to someone who was needy, and that person has to be made malik, has to be made the owner of that money. So without making someone the owner of that money and then doing some righteous work like making a masjid, constructing a masjid, this would not be enough to discharge one's obligation for zakat. One has to, tamlik is necessary, making malik, making owner of that money, that is necessary. So one can spend on the madrasa, provided that they're using that money for the zakat eligible students. One can spend money on hospitals, provided they're using that money for zakat eligible patients. One can give zakat to welfare projects, provided that they are using that money for zakat eligible people, and they're making them malik and then using it for zakat eligible to people. So all of this will be done if there are people who are religious scholars who have the know-how about the rules of zakat, and that's why it's important that you look at the management. All right, so this is all that we had, and if there are any quick questions that anyone wants to ask, they can inshallah type in the chat window. Like I said, that this is a detailed topic, and if you have any individual queries about your own circumstances, I would advise that inshallah you can get in touch with a local scholar and get your answers from them, inshallah. No, if siblings are not separate and they're still living with the family, then they're not eligible for zakah. No, they're not eligible. This is a good question. Can we give more for zakat than our zakatable end calculation? The answer is yes. In fact, this is highly encouraged, that if its zakat is 2.5%, I would encourage that people calculate their zakat at 5% and spend 5%. And subhanallah, there is so much barakah. There is so much barakah if you do that. Uh, that wealth will come back uh, manifold. So if someone has, inshallah, the istita, the ability, don't settle for 2.5%, go for 5%. If a person owns a property that is on rent, then you just have to uh, include the rent amount in your calculation. Add that to the cash and gold that you have. If a person only has gold, which is unlikely because you must have some cash as well, so you will just look at the value of that gold, add that to the other wealth that you have, and then 2.5% on the total value. That would be the zakat that you have to pay. If a person has only gold and no cash and no silver and no trade items, which is very unlikely, then the ruling would be different. No, you don't need to calculate the value of the property. It's only the rental amount. Only gold, no cash, no silver. Okay, so in that case, uh, in that case, if the gold is, if a person has 87.5 grams of gold, then his sub is 87.5 grams. Then one would be said to have nisab. And again, the rate of zakat is 2.5% on that. All right. Let's end with a dua. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Allahumma a'inna ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على حبيبي خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. If there's some unanswered questions, if you can just email me. If the zakat was due for many years and now the gold was stolen, still the person has to pay zakat for those years. Yes. Yes. The gold rate, yes, the current gold rate. You can just search on Google and see what the current gold rate is in the place that you're in. My email address, I'm just going to write down here.